Hey guys, in this video I'll show you an incredibly powerful 1-bar heavy attack sorcerer DPS build that parses 106k on the dummy. This build focuses on amplifying heavy attacks with the Sergeant's mail item set and the Empower buff, sourced from the Might of the Guild passive, procced by constantly using Ulfsild's Contingency. Sorcerer is the perfect class for that, because of its pets, because heavy attacks take up a lot of time, making you unable to spare many GCDs for other abilities. In anticipation of this build, I also made a video explaining why Oaken Soul isn't always the best option in 1-bar builds. So if you're curious about why this build doesn't use Oaken Soul, you can pause the video and read this short explanation about why Oaken Soul actually makes zero sense on a heavy attack sorcerer. Now let's move on to the build. The build is also on my website, so if you prefer written guides over YouTube videos, you can read it there instead. The link will be in the description. So let's start off with skills. This is the regular skill setup. As I said before, heavy attacking takes up a lot of time, so we want to prioritize skills that are entirely or almost entirely passive, like the Banner Bearer, Bound Aegis, and Pets. Ulfsild's Contingency, with the Shock, Lingering Torment, and Force combination on it, is your source of the Empower buff, which increases damage done by heavy attacks by 70%. Since Ulfsild's Contingency is a Mage's Guild skill, it will trigger the Might of the Guild passive, which grants you Empower for 10 seconds. It also deals decent damage on AoE and grants you the Minor Force buff, increasing your critical damage by 10%. Ulfsild's Contingency is delayed until the next skill cast, but whenever it's needed, you can activate it early by bashing your enemy. If you cast this ability as you're finishing your heavy attack, the Empower you gain from it will start working just in time to boost the final tick of that heavy attack you just finished. Use Scalding Rune instead, if you don't have access to scribing. Next we have Daedric Prey, an ability that deals decent damage and increases the damage your pets do to the target by 45%. Next we have Summon Volatile Familiar, an ability that summons a pet, which can be reactivated to deal damage on an AoE around this pet for 20 seconds. Next we have Summon Twilight Matriarch, an ability that summons a pet, which can also be reactivated to heal 2 friendly targets. Next we have Banner Bearer with the Magic, Cavalier's Charge, and Berserk script. You can change Berserk to Heroism if you can rely on your healer to provide the minor Berserk buff. Banner Bearer with this combination increases your magical damage by 6%, grants 60 weapon damage thanks to the Celerity champion point, and grants minor Berserk or minor Heroism, depending on the script you used. It also severely decreases your sustain, but it's not an issue on a heavy attack build. Use Barb Trap instead, if you don't have access to scribing. Then we have Summon Charge Atronach, the most powerful ultimate Sorcerer has access to. It will also keep proccing Concussion stats effect, which will keep up the minor vulnerability debuff, which increases enemies damage taken by 5%. An ally can also activate the Charge Lightning synergy, which grants all nearby allies Major Berserk for 10 seconds, which increases damage done by 10%. Next we have Bound Aegis, an ability that will passively increase your max magicka by 8%. It will also grant you minor resolve and minor protection, increasing your survivability. Now let's talk about situational skills. Whenever you need to slot situational skills, replace Banner Bearer. First situational skill is Elemental Blockade. Use it when you can't rely on your healer or any other group member to provide off balance. Every proper healer build uses Lightning Elemental Blockade, so this is something you need to look out for only in packs or when doing dungeons in a 1 tank 3 damage dealers composition. Then we have Crystal Weapon. Use it whenever you're the only sorcerer in your group. This skill will trigger the Exploitation passive, which grants you and everyone in your group Minor Prophecy, which increases critical chance by 6%. Next we have Elemental Susceptibility. Use it as your source of Major Breach, whenever you're assigned to mechanics that separate you from your group, like for example Portal in the Navintans fight, Reef Hearts in the Reef Guardian fight, Bridge in the Teleria fight, etc. And lastly we have Summon Twilight Tormentor. This morph deals a bit more damage than the Summon Twilight Matriarch morph, but you lose access to the heal. It is an option depending on what you're trying to achieve. Use it if you don't mind sacrificing a backup heal for a bit more damage. And this is the skill setup for parsing on the practice dummy. The only change is using Summon Twilight Tormentor instead of Summon Twilight Matriarch, since we won't ever need a heal during a dummy parse. Now moving on to gear. This is the default setup. Sergeant's Mail, Unslew's Torment, and Antilmir's Construct is what I suggest you to run if you don't want to ever swap your gear. But now I'm going to get into details and describe situational sets, which can be stronger than this setup in specific situations. For example, a default setup for trash packs would replace Unsul with Sulzan. And then I'll give you a bunch of alternative sets, which aren't stronger, but they're decent. and much easier to obtain, so you can use them before you get this gear. But before that, there are a few more things I need to explain. When choosing different situational sets, you can only replace Ansul's Torment and Antilmir's Construct. Sergeant's Mail is too strong and too crucial for this build to ever be replaced. Ideally, you want your second 5-piece set to be medium weight, but choosing a light set is also an option in dungeons, if none of your group members are providing any penetration. So let's go over the situational sets. First we have Sul'Zan's Torment, as I said before, is the best set for trash packs, and for bosses that regularly spawn smaller adds. Next we have Highland Sentinel, the strongest set if you are able to stand still in a certain encounter. Usually, when using it, you should also change Antilmir's Construct to Maw of the Infernal, as Antilmir's Construct requires you to stand very close to the boss, which means they'll be pushing you around, which will cause you to lose Highland stacks. Next we have Maw of the Infernal, which is better than Antilmir's Construct in fights where you can't reliably retrieve your axe. Next we have Roar of Alkosh, a support set that allows you to provide 6000 penetration for your team, as long as they provide you with at least one synergy every 10 seconds. It's extremely beneficial to have at least one Alkosh user in groups. If your team isn't providing any penetration, your two most efficient options for getting it yourself are Alkosh and the Light Armor Concentration passive, and you will get better DPS with Alkosh, even though it's a support set, because medium armor passives are just that good. Next we have Noble Duelist, the best option for dungeons if you can't rely on your team to provide penetration and they're not providing you with synergies, which means you can't use Alkosh. Now let's go over a bunch of alternative sets you can use before you obtain the best gear. I'm going to list sets that are crafted, that drop from Overland, PvP, or from dungeons. So simply pick two sets that are easiest for you to get. As for crafted sets, we have Order's Wrath, Newman Acolyte, Highland Sentinel, and Tarkir Strike. As for Overland, we have Mother Sorrow, which is a light armor set from the Shan, we have Bakali Gourmet, which is a light set from Galen and Niflheim, and we have Dragonguard Elite, which is a medium set from Southern Elsewhere. And as for PvP, we have Deadly Strike, which is a medium set from Bruma. Keep in mind that crafted, Overland and PvP sets are tradable and can be bought from other players. Now as for dungeon sets, we have Stormmaster, which is a medium set from Tempest Island, we have Undaunted Infiltrator, which is a medium set from Arx Corinium, we have Undaunted Unweaver, which is a light set from Arx Corinium. Keep in mind you have to add a stamina skill, like Crystal Weapon, to your setup if you use this one. And we have Tsokvin's Warband, which is a medium set from Frostbolt. And here's one additional tip. If you can rely on your supports to provide off balance, you can replace Shock Enchant with a Flame Enchant. And this is the most optimal setup for dummy parsing. It uses Highland Sentinel instead of Ansul's Torment, and it uses Flame Enchant instead of Shock Enchant. And both of these are options that were already listed as situational components of the regular setup. Moving on to champion points. In the blue tree you want to use Weapons Expert, which increases light and heavy attack damage by 20%, Deadly Aim, which increases single target damage by 6%, Fighting Finesse, which increases critical damage and healing by 8%, and Exploiter, which increases damage against off-balance enemies by 10%. Replace Deadly Aim with Biting Aura in AoE fights. In the red tree, you want to use Bond's Vitality, which increases your max health by 1400, Fortified, which increases your armor by 1731, Celerity, which increases your movement speed by 10%, and Rejuvenation, which increases all of your recoveries by 90. Moving on to race. The difference between best and worst race is about 5% of DPS, and there is no content in the entire game that you'll be blocked from completing because of choosing a bad race. With that said, the best races for 12-man content are High Elf and Dark Elf. The best race for 4-man content is Khajiit. Other decent options are Orc and Breton. Moving on to Mundus. Most of the time, you should use the 5th Mundus, which increases your critical chance. If your group isn't providing penetration, you have to either put on Roar of Alkosh, put on some light armor set, like for example Noble Duelist, or switch your Mundus to the Lover. Roar of Alkosh is the best option, as long as you can rely on your teammates to provide synergies. Because even though Alkosh is a support set, it has really good stat lines, and a minor Slayer line. So you'll end up with more DPS with Alkosh and the 5th Mundus, rather than with a light armor set, or with a regular medium DPS set and the Lover Mundus. As for attributes, it's extremely simple. You should always put all 64 points into magicka. Moving on to food. Most of the time, you should use the Arteon Pickled Fish Bowl, which increases your max health and max magicka. Solitude Salmon Millet Soup is a cheaper alternative. For dummy parsing, you can use tomato garlic chutney, which gives you only max magicka. Moving on to potions. Use the spell power potions. They'll provide major sorcery and major prophecy, which are crucial buffs. You can craft them by combining Lady's Smoke, Namira's Rot, and Cornflower. Now as for parsing, the most optimal setup for a dummy parse is the one with Highland Sentinel, and I managed to reach 106k with it. If we change the Highland Sentinel to Ansus Tormentor, we end up with the regular setup, and I managed to reach 102.8k with this one. If we also change the Antimir's Construct to Mauve the Infernal monster set, we end up with a slightly weaker setup, but one that will work in absolutely every fight, no matter what. And with this one, I managed to get 101.6k parse. Now, let me show you the 106k one.
And that's it for this video. If you have any more questions, you can comment down below or join our Discord server Wildheart. As always, feedback will be appreciated. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe to my channel and check out my Twitch. Thanks for watching and see you next time.